Millionaire discovers shocking secret in pregnant Maid's room that transformed everything forever. Nathan Prescott stood in the grand hallway of his Houston mansion, a kaleidoscope of shadows dancing around him, reflecting the frost of his internal turmoil. He had everything: accolades, power, and a sumptuous home. Yet, in the depths of his chest, an emptiness gnawed relentlessly. His beautiful wife, Sarah, would often smile with muted warmth, and their spirited daughter, Emma, with her boundless energy, fluttered around like a vibrant butterfly. Yet, surrounded by their love, Nathan felt nothing but cold isolation, as if his career had put him on one side of a glass wall, forever separated from the world he created. Work consumed him like a ravenous beast, and each day he returned to the dreariness of late nights and forgotten dinners. A gnawing disconnect strained at his heartstrings, a riptide pulling him further from the family that cherished him. When Maria came into their lives, a young maid with tired eyes and a smile that masked her harsh reality, she became just another cog in the opulent machine that was Nathan's existence. He saw her as barely more than a service, a necessity for his immaculate home. Her aspirations of nursing, shared timidly one afternoon amidst a storm of bills and future uncertainties, brushed past him. "She's just another dreamer trapped in circumstance," he thought dismissively, oblivious to the weight burdens like hers bore. Little did he know Maria was not just a maid. As he scoured for forgotten paperwork in a cluttered attic, his calloused fingertips brushed against a dusty box. It felt foreign, a glimpse into lives not his own. Racing heart and trembling hands, he opened it. Inside lay a stack of letters, yellowed with age, revealing truths that struck him harder than the pivotal cases he battled in the courtroom. They told of a father, a philanthropist yearning for his lost daughter Maria, and the series of tragic events that ripped them apart. This shaking revelation shattered his privilege-laden comfort and penetrated the veil of his arrogance. His mind raced with contradictions. How could he have overlooked her humanity? She had dreams. Real dreams. That's when the true moral dilemma clawed at Nathan's insides: to remain in his insulated bubble or to reach out and embrace the chaos of compassion. Failure screamed at him from the edges of his thoughts, intertwining with stubborn pride and an unsettling fear of what extending kindness could mean. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. He felt the tension peak, coinciding with Emma's innocent question echoing in his ears. "What makes you happy, Daddy?" How could he answer, knowing he had sacrificed joy for wealth? The weight of responsibility loomed like dark clouds oppressive in his chest, urging him to take action. Nathan was left weighing his choices, envisioning his privileged life versus a raw, authentic connection that could ease both their burdens. Standing in that attic, shaking with uncertainty, the future became a heavy fog, one he could no longer ignore. Would he reach out to Maria and reclaim the humanity he had forsaken, or retreat to his life of comfort, cloistered in blindness? The letters, their heavy truth, hung between him and the world. Just as his decision loomed, tension suffocated him, leaving him standing at a precipice with only the ghost of possibility stirring fiercely within. As Nathan stood frozen in the attic, the weight of the letters echoed in the hollowness of his heart. More than just words, they were pieces of a shattered life that reflected his own growing awareness. Each stroke of ink resonated like a siren call, stirring something deep inside him, a flicker of light that dared to peel back the layers of his self-imposed isolation. Questions spiraled in his mind, attacking the barriers he had carefully constructed around his emotions. Who was he without his work? Could compassion be stronger than ambition? In this moment of introspection, Nathan felt a primal urge to confront both his inner and outer worlds. He descended the stairs hurriedly, heart racing at the thought of talking to Maria, to truly engage with her human experience, a conversation he had previously relegated to the background of his affluent life. As he approached the kitchen where Maria was often found scrubbing dishes or folding fresh linens, a knot formed in his stomach. This was a risk, stepping outside his carefully curated existence. "Maria," he called softly, his voice catching slightly at the edges. She turned, surprise flickering across her face. "Mr. Prescott? Is everything all right?" He hesitated, but the earnestness in her expression tethered his resolve. Can we talk for a moment?" Her gesture toward one of the small kitchen chairs felt like an invitation into an entirely different sphere of connection, one where they might strip away titles and expectations. As they sat across from one another, Nathan searched Maria's eyes, wanting to understand the depth he had overlooked. "I found some letters today," he began, his voice steadier now, "and they made me realize I've known so little about your life. You shared your dreams with me before, and I never truly listened." The flicker of vulnerability in her eyes grew, but so did her skepticism. "You have your life, Mr. Prescott. I'm just a maid. It's not important." "No," he interjected, shaking his head with a sense of urgency. "Your dreams matter. They always have. What I've built, what I've prioritized, it's led me to feel empty. And I think I've lost sight of what really counts." Maria studied him for a painfully long moment, her brows furrowing as she considered his sincerity. "Why now? Why this change?" "Because I can't ignore it any longer. I want to know more about you. I want to help, somehow." There it was, the invitation to confront himself and the reality of his choices. The chaotic thoughts swirling in his mind turned into a fervent affirmation that he could no longer maintain the status quo, but as soon as it felt almost liberating, fear crept back in like a thief in the night. What if reaching out ended up exposing his vulnerabilities, unraveling the tightly woven fabric of his professional persona? Maria remained quiet, and the silence thickened with unspoken words. The enormity of Nathan's confession hung heavily between them. "I know this is a lot," he added quietly, "but it's important for me to understand your journey. Your struggles, your dreams, they could light a path for me." Her expression shifted subtly, he could see the glimmer of hope tempered with cautious resolve. It was a spark, a possibility of candidness that might bridge the gap of isolation he felt. "Okay," she replied finally, "but you must be ready to find out what you might not want to hear." Nathan's heart surged. This was a fork in his journey, an invitation to face the darkness he had avoided for too long. "Tell me everything," he urged, steadying his breath. "I want to understand." As she began to speak, mending the rift of their disconnected realities, Nathan realized he had taken the first step toward transformation, standing on the threshold of a personal revolution that could irrevocably alter the landscape of his life. Just as a deeper understanding began to unfold, a sudden crash of shattered glass echoed from the hallway, pulling them back into the harsh reality that waited just outside their burgeoning connection. Nathan's heart raced. What now? The sound of the crash reverberated through the small kitchen like an alarm bell, jolting Nathan from the tentative connection he had been forging with Maria. He felt his pulse quicken, a stark contrast to the calmness that had just begun to settle between them. Panic surged through him as he instinctively stood, his thoughts racing to worst-case scenarios. Did someone break in? Was there danger lurking just outside the door? The fragile thread of intimacy he had just unfurled with Maria hung in the balance of the unseen chaos. "Stay here," he whispered, swallowing his fear. The door to the hallway loomed ominously in front of him. Each step he took felt calculated and heavy, tinged with the urgency of a man navigating not only a physical space but the shifting landscapes of his own emotional battleground. As he pushed the door open, the shards of glass scattered across the floor glinted menacingly in the light. He followed the trail of destruction, his mind still tethered to Maria's last words. The crash, while alarming, felt insignificant compared to the weight of that revelation. It forced him to confront the fragility of the human experience, his own and hers. Dismissing the broken glass for a moment, he looked around for any other signs of disturbance. A curtain fluttered in the open window, a gentle breeze whispering uncertainty into the room. The rest of the hallway remained eerily silent, amplifying his growing apprehension. "Nathan?" Maria's voice called softly from behind him. What happened? Just a broken vase, he replied, the words feeling hollow as they emerged. I'll clean it up. The moment felt jarring, an inconsistency between his internal evolution and the external chaos closing in. He returned to the kitchen, hoping to re-establish the connection they had started to weave before the interruption, but the weight of the shattered glass seemed to linger, casting a shadow over their conversation. Let us go back, he urged, gesturing for them both to sit. I want to hear your story. It's important. Maria's demeanor, however, had shifted. The warmth in her eyes was replaced by a guardedness, as if the quiet strength she had displayed moments before was faltering under the weight of Nathan's previous silence. It struck him that the crash had not only disrupted their moment of connection but also threatened to disrupt the fragile core of trust he was trying to build. What if, she began, her voice shaky, what if my dreams are too far out of reach for someone like me? What if it's not worth discussing? The reality of her hesitation pierced through his thoughts. That's not true, he said firmly, his voice a steady anchor amidst the confusion. Your dreams matter. They hold the potential for something grand, something you could achieve. Yet even as he spoke, Nathan felt the fear of failing in this newfound role, a guide, a compassionate listener gnawing at him. What if he wasn't equipped to delve into the depths of her struggles? What if he was merely an observer, ill-prepared to handle the buoyant complexities of her realities? She looked at him with a blend of skepticism and longing, uncertainty dancing in her eyes. Nathan realized that he was standing at the precipice of something much larger than a simple conversation. This was a call to action, calling forth the depths of empathy he had neglected, his fear challenging him to confront the uncomfortable truth that understanding comes not just from hearing words, but from embracing vulnerability. Tell me what you dream about, Maria. And I promise, I won't look away. With that vow, Nathan felt a shift within himself, a commitment to honor both her words and the uncertain path that lay ahead. Just as he prepared himself to fully embrace her narrative, the silence of the hallway was shattered once more, this time by a firm knock on the front door that demanded attention. The faint glimmer of dread returned. Who could it be? And what truths or challenges would they bring that could either bolster or further unravel the delicate thread of connection he was attempting to sew with Maria? The knock echoed again, more insistent this time, reverberating in Nathan's chest like a distant drum, urging him to confront the uncertainty lurking just beyond the door. He couldn't ignore that visceral response, the instinct to either flee or fight, a primordial reaction that left him paralyzed. After a drawn-out moment, he felt another surge of determination. Time to step into the unknown, he thought. It wasn't just a confrontation with a stranger, it was a decision to confront his own fears about vulnerability, trust, and the murky paths of human connection. Taking a deep breath, he turned to Maria, whose eyes were wide, reflecting a mix of concern and curiosity. I'll handle this. Just stay here, he said, trying to infuse his voice with reassurance even as doubt tugged at his mind. He walked toward the door, each step amplifying the tension building inside him. With each knock, he pictured the possibilities: the neighbor seeking help, an unexpected visitor, or perhaps someone tied to his past. The weight of this moment felt heavy, forcing him to glance over his shoulder at Maria once more. Her face was a tapestry of hope and apprehension. Finally, he reached the door. His hand hesitated on the knob, feeling the wood-esque grain beneath his fingertips. For a fleeting second, Nathan considered turning back, retreating to the sanctuary of the kitchen, where he could pretend the world hadn't intruded on their brief moment of connection. But he knew he had to face what lay beyond that. He swung the door open. Standing there was a man in a tailored suit, his expression inscrutable, exuding confidence that bordered on arrogance. Nathan Moore? He inquired, his gaze sweeping through the doorway as if assessing the situation. Yeah, that's me, Nathan replied, surprised by the firmness in his voice. The man extended a hand, which Nathan accepted, feeling the weight of an unspoken agenda behind the handshake. Peter Langston, from Langston Enterprises. I wanted to talk to you about a potential partnership. Nathan felt an immediate flash of recognition and discomfort. The corporate world had always been a space for him filled with ambition and intimidation, a reminder of paths taken and those discarded in favor of pursuing a more fulfilling life. But this was different. It sounded like an opportunity, perhaps even an escape from the shadows of his past. Yet the abrupt entrance of this serious corporate figure felt like an intrusion into his budding relationship with Maria. To discuss my business? Nathan stepped back, subtly blocking the threshold, instinctively protecting his newfound emotional territory. Yes, exactly, Peter replied, his tone too smooth, too rehearsed. I've seen your work on the community redevelopment project. Impressive for someone from a small town. The condescension lingered over the compliment like a cloud. Nathan's anger simmered below the surface as he took a moment, weighing the implications of the encounter against the backdrop of the quiet kitchen. Here he stood, confronted not only with an offer that had the potential to propel his career but also with the responsibility of making the right choice as for how much of his past he craved to bring into his future. Can we discuss it later? Nathan offered, glancing back at Maria, hoping she hadn't felt the weight of his indecision. But she was watching him intently, her expression a mirror of his inner turmoil. Peter seemed unfazed. Time waits for no one, Nathan. This opportunity may not come knocking again. That persistent call echoed in Nathan's mind, forcing a critical question to surface. Was he ready to embrace this old world again, or would he allow the fear of losing the connection he had just begun to build with Maria steer his decisions? Maybe this isn't just about business, he muttered under his breath, realizing the intersection of personal and professional was fraught with danger. The implications of that thought echoed just as sharply as the firm knock had, vibrating through the fragile framework of his mind. Nathan faced a pivotal choice: to plunge back into a realm that once defined him or forge a new path with Maria at his side. That he inhaled sharply, trying to navigate through the storm of obligations and desires swirling inside him. "Let us talk," he finally said, locking eyes with Peter, determined to hold on to the thread of connection he had with Maria, yet unsure of the cost of that choice. His fate now intertwined with both Peter and Maria. Nathan stepped back, allowing the man into his home, the sound of the door closing behind them whispering promises of change. Little did he know, however, that the choices made tonight would set off a chain reaction, leading him to a revelation that could change everything he thought he knew about himself. Nathan had already crossed the threshold into a world he had thought he left behind, the warmth of the kitchen fading behind him as the suave presence of Peter Langston filled the space. He motioned toward the living room, a simultaneous invitation and challenge. Each step further into his home felt like a step deeper into a current he couldn't quite navigate. As they settled into the understated yet elegantly furnished space, the weight of Peter's expectations pressed against Nathan's chest. He was acutely aware of Maria's eyes on him, a silent reminder of what was at stake. He had never been one to shy away from difficult conversations or judgments. He had faced them with an air of casual confidence before. But this felt different, a puzzle that required more than just pieces to fit. It demanded clarity and conviction. "So, Nathan," Peter began, an edge of calculated charm in his voice, "your project has garnered a lot of attention. Langston Enterprises believes you could lead our next major initiative." His pitch was slick, polished by years of experience in corporate negotiations. But Nathan's attention turned inward, a swirl of emotions competing for dominance. This was the arena he had once craved, but now, a sense of hollowness accompanied the allure of power and prestige. "What's in it for you?" Nathan countered, leveraging the question to regain footing in the conversation. He met Peter's confident gaze with one that was equal parts assertive and questioning. Peter smiled, as if reveling in Nathan's cautious skepticism. "We're looking to revitalize the downtown area, but we need someone with your insight on community needs. You understand the pulse of this place." The compliment dripped with insincerity, but Nathan couldn't help absorbing the validation. Maybe he hadn't lost everything after all. "But what about the community?" he asked, fighting the urge to qualify his doubt. "Is profit more important than the people?" Peter leaned back, fingers steepled, apparently amused by the question. I think we can have both, he replied. With the right leadership, you can mold the project to reflect the community while still maximizing returns. Nathan's heart raced. The prospect of melding his vision with corporate ambition was enticing, but it rang hollow, a facade hiding age-old compromises. He glanced toward Maria, who was silently observing, her expression a canvas of mixed emotions. Would she understand if he took this path? He remembered his motivations, his dreams to create spaces for people, to transform lives through genuine engagement, and yet here was an opportunity to slip back into a more lucrative role, one that promised security. Why now? Nathan pressed, his voice firm against the current of distractions swirling around him. What changed? Change is constant, Nathan, and sometimes, it's about being in the right place at the right time, Peter stated matter-of-factly, the veneer of sincerity cracking. You have talent. Now, it's time to apply it on a larger scale. As the tension in the room escalated, doubt wrestled with ambition in Nathan's mind. He needed clarity, but it seemed to slip further away with every calculated word Peter uttered. He was being lured back into a world that had once consumed him, but the glimmer of a fresh start with Maria tugged at his heartstrings. Let me think about it, Nathan said, the words pouring out more like a question than a declaration. Of course, Peter replied, a smirk dancing across his lips, but remember, opportunities like this don't linger. Time is unforgiving. As the conversation fizzled into small talk, Nathan found himself drawing deeper into his own spiraling thoughts. The familiar rush of adrenaline coursed through him, awakening his old ambitions while simultaneously igniting a quiet resolve. What if he could step into this role but reclaim agency, reshape the project to align with his values? Meanwhile, Maria's eyes remained locked on him, a lighthouse in the fog that he knew would guide him back if he strayed too far. With a heavy heart, Nathan resolved to navigate the dual landscapes of ambition and personal connection, seeking to strike a balance and equilibrium that would satisfy both the man he used to be and the one he was becoming, and as the conversation lingered around safe subjects, he realized the real decision loomed larger than business. It challenged him to reconsider his identity, his priorities, and what success truly meant. What path would reveal his real self, the corporate behemoth or the community advocate? One thing was clear, however, this was just the beginning of a much larger journey, and he felt the winds of change sweeping through, beckoning him to take a step forward. The question was, would he step forward to seize it or retreat into the comfort of what he had? Nathan sat silently, his thoughts spiraling as the mundane background chatter faded into a haze. The weight of Peter's proposition bore heavy on him, a tangible pressure that nudged at his consciousness. He hadn't committed to anything yet the implications loomed larger than he had expected. Minutes stretched, elongating his internal conflict like taffy, sweet yet sticky, difficult to escape. Maria's unwavering gaze was a tether, grounding him amidst the turmoil. Though she remained quiet, her presence screamed for clarity, for action. His ambition was gnawing at him, urging him to rise, to claim the power Peter dangled before him like a golden carrot. A part of him longed for that thrill, a part had always craved it, yet now felt a different beat reverberating within. What did success mean to him, anyway? He had initially envisioned creating spaces that were more than just structures, they were to be vessels of change. But was that still what he craved, or had the allure of prestige and validation clouded his judgment? As he glanced at Maria, her expression hinted at a deep understanding, as though she could see through the fog obscuring his intentions. Could she sense the shift within him? The risk of distorting his values for a sliver of corporate acclaim? Hey, Nathan, what are you thinking? Maria finally broke the silence, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Just considering everything, he replied, the honesty surprisingly liberating. I hope you're aware of what this could mean, she added, her tone equally cautious and supportive. It might change everything. Nathan nodded, acknowledging the weight of her words. He faced the kind of choice that could either uplift his vision or bury it beneath polished veneers of profit margins and market analysis. Do you think I should take the opportunity? he asked, searching her eyes for guidance. "Nathan, only you can decide that," she responded. "But remember who you are. Are you willing to compromise your values for this?" Her question echoed in his mind as he closed his eyes momentarily, delving deeper into introspection. Suddenly, the room's warmth felt suffocating, and he needed a breath of fresh perspective. He stood abruptly, eyes darting toward the window. "I need some space to think," he muttered before stepping outside. The cool evening breeze greeted him like a balm. He expelled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Walking the length of the porch, Nathan surveyed the neighborhood, the familiar sights washing over him like a nostalgic wave. Each broken sidewalk, each cracked facade told stories he knew too well. He envisioned the potential of this area, a confluence of history and future. What if I could leverage this opportunity to innovate? The thought sparked within him. What if I could create a project that genuinely respected the community while delivering value? Would that be enough to quell the rising tide of ambition within him? Could the project stand as a bridge between worlds, the corporate and the personal, and ultimately serve as a catalyst for change he once so passionately believed in? Yet fear lingered in the air, heavy and urgent. What if this plan unraveled? What if he stepped into a role that slowly warped him back into someone he had fought so hard to disavow? God, he muttered under his breath, grappling with the polarized visions of his career and heart. The decision before him wasn't just about a job, it was an exploration of his identity. As Nathan's resolve began to crystallize, he felt a shift inside, a determination coalescing amidst the uncertainty. Maybe Peter's words couldn't completely dictate who he was and who he could become. If only he could find a way to navigate the very channels of ambition he once revered, but infuse them with the authenticity he yearned to maintain. The sun dipped lower, casting an orange hue over the landscape as hope mingled with lingering tension. Who will I become? He mused aloud, a question steeped in anxiety yet oddly invigorating. He turned back toward the door just as it opened slightly. Maria standing there, concern etched across her face. "You okay?" "Yeah," he sighed, a tentative smile forming. "I think I'm starting to figure things out." But what he didn't realize was that the answers he sought were about to be challenged in a way he hadn't foreseen. He stepped inside, ready to confront Peter once more, but the reality of the paths diverging ahead threatened to unravel everything he thought he had decided. How would he emerge from this reckoning, more aligned with his true self, or even more lost than before? The stakes pushed higher, revealing shadows lurking just beneath the surface. Nathan stepped into the dim light of the office, his heart pounding like a drum, each beat resonating with disbelief and anticipation. Peter stood by the massive conference table, his back turned as he reviewed some documents. The air buzzed with an electric tension, a clear delineation between Nathan's burgeoning resolve and Peter's business-centric ethos. "Glad you could join me," Peter said without turning, his tone as smooth as the polished wood beneath his hands. "I take it you've had some time to think?" Fingers twitching at his sides, Nathan met Peter's gaze, steeling himself for the barrage that was sure to follow. "I need to know more about this project, Peter. The team, the vision. What are you really after?" Peter finally turned, a slight smirk playing on his lips. "Ambition, Nathan. Isn't that what you wanted? This opportunity can elevate us beyond the mundane. We can create something powerful, financially transformative. But at what cost?" Nathan challenged, feeling adrenaline spike through him. "I'm not just another cog in your machine. When this is over, I want something I can be proud of." "Pride doesn't pay the bills," Peter countered smoothly, his brow raising in a challenge. "You can take a risk here and establish your name, or continue playing it safe and stay in the shadows. Your call." Nathan bristled at Peter's dismissive demeanor. While the tension in the room escalated, waves of doubt threatened to drown the clarity he had sought on the porch. "I don't want to sell out, Peter. I want to build something authentic." Peter chuckled lightly, but there was an edge to his laughter. "Authenticity? In business? My friend, that's a quaint notion, but let us be real. He leaned in closer, an intensity pouring from him. You have the chance to lead a project that could redefine how we interact with urban spaces. Don't you want to be at the forefront? It was a seductive proposal, and Nathan felt the pull of ambition tugging at him again, a siren-esque call wrapped in glossy promises. Yet, Maria's caution echoed in his mind like a compass guiding him through a storm. I want to be a part of something that matters, Nathan said, searching for conviction in his voice. He could feel the rattle of his own heart, the contrast between his ambition and values creating dissonance. What matters is profit. End result. Numbers, Peter insisted. You think your lofty ideals will pay off? Or will your projects remain dreams buried under someone's broken sidewalk? That question cut deeper than Nathan anticipated. His vision for creating impactful spaces without compromising integrity now felt painfully naive. Are you really that cynical? Nathan asked, shaking his head. We could make a real difference if we put people first. People don't come first, Nathan. They never will, Peter said bluntly. You either adapt or find yourself replaced. In that moment, the weight of his internal conflict felt almost unbearable. Nathan wrestled with his emotions, his dreams colliding with an unapologetic reality. What was he willing to sacrifice, and could he wield his influence for good without losing himself in the process? He took a deep breath, attempting to quell the chaos swirling within, knitting his thoughts together into a cohesive determination. I want to spearhead this project, but I need freedom to innovate, freedom from the constraints of profit at any cost. We can find balance. Peter regarded him with a thoughtful expression, appraising him like a piece of art. You're negotiating, Nathan. But understand there are limits to how much I can bend. This isn't a charity, it's a business. Nathan sensed the gravity of what he proposed. Getting Peter on board would mean a delicate dance, a balancing act between conflicting values. Yet it was the only direction he could envision moving towards, merging the mercenary nature of business with his innate desire for impactful design. The negotiation was just beginning, but it felt dire. Bridges could be burned or built. Then let us get to work, Peter. I'll present ideas that weave innovation with community needs, Nathan declared, the fire in his belly igniting a spark of hope. He turned, leaving Peter to contemplate what had just transpired, a moment that would either set him on a perilous path or yield the foundation for his next chapter. As Nathan walked out, feeling the tide shift within him, he grasped the enormity of the challenge ahead. The stakes were higher, every joining of visions and realities could tilt him further to one side or the other. Would he reclaim his authentic self through this project or surrender to the darker allure of ambition? The answer loomed dangerously close, yet tantalizingly out of reach. How far was he willing to go to see his vision manifest? Nathan stood outside the building, the brisk air striking his face like a slap, a stark contrast to the anxiety simmering inside. The negotiations with Peter weighed heavily, and he worried that he was standing on the precipice of a decision that could change everything. Retrieving his phone, he checked the time. He was late for a meeting across town with other stakeholders who might be crucial to the project. Rushing to the subway, Nathan replayed the conversation with Peter, his mind racing through strategies to present his ideas effectively. He had to find a way to marry the corporate hunger for profit with his vision for meaningful urban environments. What if he could leverage Peter's resources while still advocating for the kind of designs that served community needs? The thought both excited and terrified him. As the train lurched into motion, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. His mind wandered to the meeting ahead, a panel of experienced professionals with diverse opinions. Would they place value on his vision, or would they echo Peter's cynicism? Arriving at the sleek office building, Nathan swept through the modern lobby, focused as he approached the meeting room. The tension from earlier had transformed into a frenzied determination to prove that financial success did not have to come at the expense of integrity. In the conference room, he found a group of seasoned architects and local developers, their faces unreadable. He took a seat at the long table and introduced himself, reminding them of their common goal, to create spaces that not only functioned well but that resonated with people on a deeper level. As the discussion commenced, Nathan carefully articulated his proposals, demonstrating how innovative designs could still yield profits. He highlighted the benefits of community engagement, sustainability, and aesthetic appeal. A few nods from the seasoned developers fueled his confidence, yet he could not shake the underlying anxiety about the opposition. "Our designs must reflect the stories of the people who will inhabit them," he asserted, drawing on all the passion he'd held tightly within. "We're not just constructing buildings, we're shaping lives. And that can result in an economic boon rather than a hindrance." The atmosphere shifted slightly as he spoke, the conversation becoming less about numbers and more about vision. He could feel the tide turning when one of the architects chimed in, praising Nathan's approach of blending functionality with emotional engagement. Yet, not everyone was on board. A gruff-voiced Frank, a well-respected but traditional developer, interjected. "These ideals are all well and good, but at the end of the day, we are answerable to our investors. You can't build a community on dreams. You build it on cold, hard facts." Nathan felt a bead of sweat trickle down his back. The challenge was now personal. He couldn't back down, not after the journey he had embarked upon. "I understand that, Frank. But the numbers have to reflect what people genuinely need, otherwise, we risk creating empty shells, hollow remnants of what a community could be." A murmur of agreement floated around, suggesting that perhaps Nathan was striking a chord after all. The battle within him to assert his beliefs while remaining respectful gripped him tighter. This wasn't just about numbers, it was about redefining what success meant. The hours slipped by as he exchanged ideas, defending his approach while absorbing insights. Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that he was straddling two worlds: the ambition-driven brutality Peter represented and the community-oriented ideals he cherished. As the meeting concluded, Nathan felt a mix of exhausted exhilaration. There had been moments of doubt, and yet he sensed that perhaps he had planted seeds of change within the group. The challenge would be nurturing them into something tangible, a design that could breathe life into concrete. Walking back to the subway, his thoughts circled back to Peter. He needed to confront Peter again, reassert his position while understanding the shadows that loomed over their ambitions. But how could he do this without sacrificing the vision he had ignited within himself? His phone buzzed. It was a message from Maria, an invitation to discuss the progress on a new design initiative. Part of him longed for her perspective, another part felt uncertain. Could he trust her view on what might become another battleground for his ideals? As Nathan stepped onto the platform, he realized he was no longer the same man who had walked into Peter's office that day. He had discovered a resilience within, but now, the true test lay ahead: a face-off with the very ambitions that drew him in and the principles that anchored him, because somewhere within this clash of ideals, the truth awaited him. He took a deep breath, ready to face what laid ahead. Would this confrontation with Peter reveal his ultimate path, or would it cast him into an abyss of compromise? The answers spiraled, whispering to him that the tension, like a taut string, was about to snap. The train screeched to a halt at his destination, pulling Nathan back from his racing thoughts. He stepped onto the platform with urgency, the words from the meeting still echoing in his mind. The challenge had deepened, and with each step toward the exit, he could feel the weight of his aspirations pressing down on him, pushing through the throngs of commuters. Nathan recalled Peter's dismissive attitude towards his vision. Would the capitalistic fervor overshadow the genuine need for meaningful design? As he arrived at the entrance of the familiar cafe where he was to meet Maria, a flicker of doubt crept in. Was he prepared to share his innermost concerns? She had always been a voice of reason, but he wasn't sure how receptive she would be to his shifting perspective. He took a seat at a corner table, scanning the room, and trying to arrive at clarity. Moments later, Maria entered, her bright smile easing some of the tension coiling inside him. They exchanged pleasantries, but as soon as she sat down, her sharp gaze revealed she was ready to dive into serious matters. "Nathan, I've seen your recent presentations. You're really pushing an agenda on sustainability and community engagement," she said, her tone shifting from casual to professional. "But I sense you're also holding back. What is troubling you?" It was almost startling how perceptive she was. Nathan took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts like fallen leaves. "It feels like there's a fundamental clash between what I believe in and the forces at play in this industry," he confessed, the weight of his words filling the small space between them. "Today, I battled with the idea that profit can only come at the expense of meaningful design." Maria nodded, encouraging him to continue. He laid bare his emerging conflict, how he struggled between the pursuit of impact and the nagging pressure from corporate giants like Peter. "I can't just create shells for wealth without considering how they resonate with people's lives." She paused, scrutinizing him. "You're right. The issue is deeper than profit margins, it's about the future we are building," she encouraged. "Have you considered how you might bridge that gap?" Nathan's mind raced. This was a pivotal conversation. "I want to create spaces that don't just exist physically but that enhance spirituality, culture, and community ties. But it means taking a stand that might alienate investors. I can't afford to lose my footing, not now." "Sometimes taking that risk is necessary," Maria replied steadfastly. "If you insist on working within a model that doesn't support your vision, you might lose sight of what makes your work meaningful. Trust your instincts." Her words struck him. He had always admired her ability to articulate what fled from his mouth. He mused on her point, the idea of holding on to his core principles instead of bending to the pressure. Would he be brave enough to propose a solution that defied conventional economic logic? Just then, the cafe door swung open, and in walked a figure Nathan recognized. It was Frank. The seasoned developer strode toward the counter, oblivious to Nathan's presence. A surge of anxiety darted through him. What if their paths intertwined today? "Look, I can't make decisions in a vacuum," Nathan said, returning to his conversation with urgency. "I need to confront Peter, but I fear it will lead to confrontation. I worry that I'll be forced into a corner where I have to choose." "You can't live in fear of that," Maria urged. "Understand your value, and stand by your convictions. The tension you feel is a crucible for your growth." In that moment, Nathan felt the sharpness of realization slice through his uncertainty. Confronting Peter might be the only way to reclaim his vision, to test whether the authenticity he yearned for was truly achievable in the ruthless world of architecture. Perhaps it's about more than just an immediate return on investment, Nathan considered aloud, unexpectedly finding confidence in expressing his evolving thoughts. "Maybe I need to challenge not only Peter but the whole notion of what success means in our field." The tension within him coalesced into a fierce resolution, igniting the fire needed for his next confrontation. After all, if he was going to redefine the future, he couldn't shy away from the risks that accompanied it. As he rose from the table, determination replaced the doubt that had been so persistent. Their conversation had galvanized his mission. The next encounter with Peter could be a turning point. He thanked Maria for her insight and knew he needed to act swiftly. Nathan navigated back to the bustling streets, the same anxiety lapping at him, but now suffused with possibility. He approached Peter with tenacity this time, with his ideals firmly in his grasp, but would Peter respond to his boldness, or was he inviting further conflict that might threaten everything Nathan stood for? That question loomed large as he stepped into the chaotic flow of the city, setting the stage for a confrontation that could either solidify his path or shatter his vision entirely. Nathan stood in the spacious conference room, courage propelling him forward as he prepared to confront Peter once again. Today's meeting was not just another corporate dialogue, it was a defining moment that would crystallize who he had become through this transformative journey. Gone were the layers of uncertainty and compromise. Today he would claim his voice. "Peter," Nathan began, his voice steady but infused with urgency. "I need a different approach to this project. It cannot be just profit-driven, we must center the community's needs as our guiding principle." Peter leaned back in his chair, his expression a mixture of interest and skepticism. "This is business, Nathan. You know profits drive everything. Without that focus, we risk losing more than just funding." we risk losing everything. With a deep breath that steadied his resolve, Nathan pressed on. But what if we can build something sustainable that serves as both a financial success and a catalyst for meaningful change? A project that encourages community participation and reflects the very soul of the people living here. The tension crackled in the air as Nathan felt the weight of his words. Boldness surged inside him, emboldened by the realization that striving for impact was not synonymous with losing his place in the business world. "Look, Nathan," Peter interjected, his tone turning sharp, "this isn't an idealistic playground. Stakeholders want to see numbers, not dreams." Nathan met Peter's gaze, heart racing but grounded in conviction. "What if I can show you a way to achieve both? We can gather data and insights through community engagements that not only match profitability but enhance investor confidence." Silence hung heavy in the room, Nathan's words hung between them like a promise. A flash of realization jolted through him. He would not back down. He had heard Maria's encouragement to trust his instincts, and he knew he had to live up to his vision now more than ever. Peter's expression shifted as he studied Nathan. "Let's say I agree to this approach. What does it look like? Let's create workshops for community members to share their input and dreams. Then we could design a proposal that incorporates their voices, turning their dreams into a shared vision. This will not only foster investment but build trust, ultimately enhancing the project's perceived value." Nodding slowly, Peter leaned in. "It's risky. But if you believe in it, I'll give you the space to try it. Just know that pursuing this path means we become accountable for results." Nathan felt the walls of apprehension begin to dissolve. "I understand, but I believe we're capable of achieving both the metrics and the community's aspirations." As their discussion continued, the conversation took on new energy, opening pathways for innovation that Nathan hadn't fathomed before. They explored budgets, timelines, and the importance of transparency in everything they present. The hours sped by, each word a layer of trust being forged. By the end of the meeting, Nathan emerged not only as a champion of balanced progress but equipped with a greater sense of purpose. He could embrace both ambition and compassion. Weeks passed, and Nathan dedicated himself to the project, rallying a diverse team that embraced his vision. He cultivated genuine relationships within the community, whose stories painted the project in vivid shades of authenticity. Through every workshop and meeting, he witnessed hope ignite within the very people whose voices had been marginalized, and their passion fueled his drive. One day, as he stood amidst the evolving landscape of the redevelopment site, he felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. Together, they were reshaping a narrative that intertwined ambition with humanity. The connection with the community had transformed him, illuminating the way forward. Finally, the supportive press conference arrived, a celebration of their collaborative achievement. Nathan stood before a gathered crowd, his heart swelling with pride as he spoke about their journey. "Today marks not just a project completed but a commitment to values that echo through our work. We can create thriving environments when we listen just as much as we lead." As the applause reverberated in his chest, Nathan realized that he was no longer separated by a glass wall of privilege. He had forged connections, embraced vulnerability, and discovered a purpose that tethered him not only to his profession but to the very fabric of humanity. Emerging from doubt and fear, he had triumphed not just as an architect but as a facilitator of change, proving that compassion and ambition could coexist in his professional life. Nathan walked away from the podium, feeling genuinely fulfilled, embodying a new legacy rooted in service and integrity. The metamorphosis he had undergone felt palpable. He had conquered the isolation that once bound him, claiming his place within both the professional landscape and the community's heart. This was not just a conclusion, it was the beginning of endless possibilities. Forward momentum, driven by principle rather than mere ambition. Now, your journey can also ignite change. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire growth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure more stories like this reach those in need. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Nathan's extraordinary transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting our community through these actions.